Okay,
This conference will now be recorded.
So Ann loves to guide companies. She is the Master Certified Duct Tape Marketing Consultant. Ann is dedicated to bringing marketing know-how to. She believes that marketing is done best when it's handled internally, and that's why she recently switched from consulting to coaching. So Ann, we really want to learn about this duct tape marketing. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Ann.
Great, thank you. Let's see. My screen is not being shared, is it? Okay, I need to share my screen. And here it goes. Okay, and I am just going to move my little go to meeting thing over to the side. So let me get back to my cover. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Everything good, Kayvon or anybody? Yes. Okay, I'm good. Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good.
Perfect. I'd hate to start and not have it, not have it doing what I want it to do. So thank you. Thank you for having me, Kayvon. And, I reached out to Kayvon. I'm actually a member of the NARI chapter in the Pacific Northwest based out of Portland. I'm in Seattle, and I used to be in California, and I was on the board of the North Bay NARI chapter in Marin County. So active NARI member, and I love sharing on marketing. So before I start, I want to get into what my goals are for today with you. I am going to give you a lot of ideas about what you can do for your marketing. But what I want to really get you to do is to think about marketing and these ideas, because like Kayvon said, I do strongly believe that marketing is done best when it's at least done partially in-house, but owned, when you own your own marketing. So anyway, what I'm hoping that I can accomplish today with you is getting you to understand and accept why marketing is really important right now, and how marketing, what we're dealing with right now, how that affects your company and what you might be doing with it. Oh, Kayvon, just a note. Remember we talked about the notes pages. I have a document. If you'd like to take notes and it's not too much hassle for you, you can click to download a document of notes pages and fill in some blanks, and hope that's helpful. I will, by the way, at the end of this tonight, I will be sending an email with a link to download the slides. So, okay, back to this. What's really important is also for you to understand how to stand out against your competition, and why that's so important. And finally, I really hope that you'll have some things that you want to do to take action with your marketing, and also evaluate what you've currently got going. So with that, another thing before I get started, I know the audience today is very varied. It's not just remodeling contractors. There are a lot of people, obviously, who are associates who are supporting the building trades, and I hope that a lot of this will be relevant to what you're doing as well. So, okay, so first of all, I wanted to talk about why we're here. Of course, I would love it to be all about learning about marketing, but it's really more than that. It's about getting more qualified leads, but it's also, in my opinion, about gaining some control or security over what's going on right now. I've talked to, and I regularly talk to a lot of remodelers around the country, and there are a lot of issues right now that are making people nervous. So we'll get into some of those and how that affects marketing in a little bit. And why I'm here. First of all, I know marketing isn't rocket science. It is. I didn't learn it in college. I ended up learning it on my first job, and then I decided to go get an MBA in marketing. But marketing is something that's pretty intuitive, but there are a lot of tools right now. So it's not something that you have to leave alone. You can understand it and understand what you can do to make it work for your company. Additionally, I really believe that marketing is not a one-size-fits-all. There are companies that will tell you this is what you need to do with marketing, or this solution will take care of all of your marketing problems, but each company needs its own solution. And for those reasons, I do believe that marketing should be handled primarily in-house. And so that's the approach I'm taking here. Now, granted, there are a lot of things that marketing has got more complicated, and there are things that I don't even do because those are best left to the experts. Say, for example, an SEO plan and keywords. Some of those things are pretty technical. So before we go further, though, I want to talk about the difference between marketing and sales. Now, marketing, you can read these, but basically marketing is to get somebody who has a need for your services or products to know, like, and trust you. And the key is to build that so that they take action, and to have something in place or different tactics in place so that somebody will pick up the phone or come into the store or showroom or fill out a form. Now, sales, on the other hand, refers to the activities related to, say, specific people, whether they're more specifically focused on individual leads or prospects. So marketing is a little broader. Sales is really specific and getting people to, to basically get to the end and sell. So one thing I didn't tell you, I've been presenting on this topic since May. I was asked by my local Home Builders Association here in Seattle to present back in April, and the first time I did this was early May. And each time I present this, and this is probably, I've lost count, probably the 6th or 7th, I go through the deck and I update the slides and make sure everything's still relevant. And it's amazing how much I've changed since I started this, the first deck. But one of the things that I've added is, we're reflecting not just pre-pandemic, what's changed during the pandemic as it relates to COVID, but we're actually now, we've got all these other variables and things that are happening. So I just wanted to acknowledge those because they do affect marketing. So from what I have been seeing, it seems like pre-pandemic, the major issue was and concern was availability of labor. But today we've got that, and we've got supply chain issues. When are products coming in? Are there elements or components to products that are making them unavailable right now? I've heard horror stories from remodelers, especially say, if they have an appliance, a refrigerator that is not in and is holding up a project. There's increased lumber costs. And all of this basically means that there are more variables and uncertainties that are factoring into the bottom line and the profit, and timing is part of that. You've also got to manage the PPE, anything related to COVID, which I know is a concern for many of you, especially if you have a showroom. Managing additional, materials if they're held up, managing relationships with these, letting people know this is the situation. Obviously, things can't move forward depending upon what the issue is. And really managing all of this takes more time. I've actually talked to people who've had to hire additional, at least one additional project manager to handle the existing projects that are going on. And all of that affects not only the bottom line, but also if you're an owner of a business, it's taking up more head space for you and adding stress. So moving on here. Whoops, it's going to jump ahead. Sorry. What I've learned this year, this is a new slide, and I was thinking about this and, thinking that obviously this year is unlike any other that we have experienced. So one thing I've learned, and this maybe relates to life in general right now, but, it seems like the rules have changed and that life isn't really fair. or really isn't fair. As much as we do what we should be doing, things are still going awry and sideways. So therefore, I think you need to know what you can affect or change, and be aware of that with projects. Be nimble and ready to deal with whatever is coming down next. And then these two, be sympathetic and have hope. If we don't have hope, I don't think that, I think it could be pretty depressing. And I think that this relates to, to how we do business and also how we market right now. And so moving on here, now we're going to get into the practical part of things about what you can do about marketing, why you can't ignore marketing at this point. So with all these variables, you want to have more control. You also want to be top of mind with people, especially if somebody's going to make a referral. You want them to think about you. And you can't do that if you're not staying top of mind, and marketing enables you to do that. I mentioned that uncertainty means that you need to communicate more effectively, but there are opportunities in this market that that maybe weren't available last year, but you do have to look for them. This was actually really interesting at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of major companies stopped advertising, and people were we were all like deer in the headlights, not knowing what to do. And so I almost took this one out, but I do believe there's still opportunities. Things have just shifted some. I want you to understand that marketing is a long-term play. A lot of it is anyway. That means that it may take time to build the effects, or to see the effects of some marketing strategies, or tactics, I should say. Your online presence is really important. Basically, how people find you online and how you show up online is critical now. You didn't used to be as important. So for example, you get a lot of your business from referrals. It didn't back in, say, the earlier downturn of 2008 through 2011, 12 or so. You're getting referrals, and the quality of your work and your reputation were most important. But now how you show up online, I think, is actually more important than that. Your reputation still is critical, but there are a lot of companies that are nailing the online presence stuff. They've got lots of reviews online. They're being very active in their social media and have a newer website. They're blogging, creating content. And so for those companies are making it so that companies who've been around longer really need to pay attention and to get onto that online presence bandwagon, so to speak. And we'll go into that more. Obviously, we all know that that digital and virtual tools are changing processes, and that was one of the things as far as how, when you registered, I saw the responses, and Zoom meetings obviously are one of the most important ones that that first meeting. So you can't ignore marketing, because people are expecting, especially depending upon how active COVID is in a market at a certain point in time. People are either more relaxed or they're more hesitant about going out and visiting a business. Also, each customer journey is unique. It used to be that there were like simple steps that most people went through, but now that there's so much information that can be found online, each journey is different. Somebody may start out doing searches on kitchens and make a bunch of Pinterest boards. Other people may go to house. Other people may ask their friends. They may do 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1 or 2, 3, 1, whatever. And there's a lot of different ways to get to that point of actually contacting a company. And you need to understand that, and you need to not ignore marketing because of that. Another reason is that I want you to be less affected by these variables that I mentioned earlier, and also your competition. Some of them are doing a really good job of marketing right now. A lot of companies are not, and so there are really good opportunities to strengthen your marketing. So I like this Sun Tzu quote. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, And tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And basically, you need to have strategy or plan. You need to plan in advance for your marketing. Now, as Kayvon mentioned, I am a master duct tape marketing consultant. I've been affiliated with duct tape for 10 years now. And one of the things we believe is that strategy does come before tactics. And when I talk about marketing strategy, these are the elements that that I'm talking about. First, what you want to do is to identify and define your ideal clients, your target market, and you can develop personas. Basically, you know, one of the exercises that I do with my clients is we develop personas for each of the different markets that they've got, and they may be related to geography, or say season of life that somebody's in, but oftentimes it has to do with say the pain in the neck, you know, whether somebody's a pain in the neck client or not, and how do you identify that? So obviously your ideal clients aren't pain in the neck, and so creating personas helps to identify what those elements are of the ones that are ideal. And I would also add to that ideal projects. You know, you don't want to take on a project that is not part of what you normally do and that you have the profit that you're aiming for. You also need to consider your company vision, develop your core message. By the way, part of what I do with my clients is I survey my clients' and I do phone surveys and talk to them. What did you appreciate about working with so-and-so? And it's in those conversations, and you can do this for your company or have somebody who knows you do this, because oftentimes people will basically share more when they're not sharing directly with the company. You know, there's that buffer and honesty. They're more honest, and you can look for themes in what you hear from those clients. And part of that, typically, what makes a company different, and we'll get more into this, you do find out from those client surveys. We scope what content is there. That includes, you know, the website, photos, blogs, social media, etc., any PDFs. And then what we do is we map tactics to the customer journey, so that there is not any one point in time in that customer journey where there isn't something that can bring somebody along to that next step. And this really is the duct tape marketing point of view. So, you know, in strategy, I teach, you know, I've taught entire day seminars on strategy. So I just wanted you to get an idea of what I am thinking of when I talk about strategy. So as far as how you can differentiate yourself from your competition, one of the main reasons you want to do that is so that you don't compete on price. Because if you do compete on price, then, you know, somebody is going to easily undercut you and your profit's not going to be there. So here are some ways to not stand out. You know, so these are things I don't want you to do. So for example, say that we're most trusted in whatever city, or we're the best, BBB accredited, we've been in business since, or we have, you know, between the whole team, we've got 564 years of experience. You know, we're third generation, or we have all these certifications, or and by the way, certifications are important, but they don't make you stand out as far as when somebody is looking to work with you. That's not going to differentiate you. That's going to be something that does play a part, and may play a part in somebody's decision, but people don't look necessarily for these certifications. And finally, no job too big or too small. That's saying like, we'll do anything. And when you say that, then you're not setting yourself up as an expert. So, okay, next, how do you differentiate? Typically, with service-based businesses, when you differentiate, it's typically based on how you are serving your clients, and it's something that you are doing that makes your clients. I hear beeping. I don't know if that's an issue. Kayvon, if it is, maybe put something in the chat. But anyway, with differentiation, it's oftentimes the way that you're delivering your service. Maybe it's the way you clean up, or the way you communicate, or, you know, the tools that you're using as you work with your clients, your responsiveness, things like that. Another way to differentiate is to focus on a niche. Maybe it's additions or basements or historic homes or, you know, accessory dwelling units, things like that. Maybe it's certain products that you sell that nobody else sells. And I mentioned the service. One of the key ways to also find this, even prior to surveying your clients, is to look online at reviews. That what have people said about you? That often provides insight. So what I would recommend is, you know, go to Yelp, go to House, go to Google My Business, and screenshot all those reviews, throw them into a Word document, and print that, and look for themes. What are you seeing more than once? So as I mentioned, you don't want to be selling on price. You want to be selling on value. And when somebody appreciates what you have that nobody else has, they're willing to pay more for it. And so, okay, so I see it's not me right here with the beeping. So now I want to get into some things that you can do now without doing any additional marketing strategy, because I understand for most companies, especially in the, you know, in the remodeling space, there isn't staff to have spent the, you know, to make it easy to do a marketing strategy. So I wanted to make it so that there's some really good tactics or ideas of things that you can do right now. And so I'm going to go through each of these 9 in more detail. So I'm not going to read them to you right now. So the first one is to strengthen your online presence. And here are some things that you can do to strengthen it. First of all, Google My Business. You know, if we were in a room right now, I'd be asking you to raise your hand of how many people have really paid attention to their Google My Business profile and get into it on a regular basis. I didn't realize until last fall when I was at the Duct Tape Marketing Annual Summit, and a guy named Mike Blumenthal gave a talk about Google My Business, and I was like a puppy going, you know, I was just like enamored with him, partially because I love Google My Business, and I've been posting photos and 360 photos to Google for Google My Business for about 4.5 years now, and I didn't realize quite how important Google My Business was to SEO. And Google My Business is the #1 SEO tool for small businesses today, and it's free. And one of the things that I really like about it is that it's so DIY. You can absolutely do this yourself. So the first thing, though, that you need to do is you need to complete your listing or your profile, and then you need to optimize it. And I do have a video on Mastering Google My Business on my YouTube channel, and you know, you can take a look at that. But there's some basic things. You can even do Google searches and find out what those things are. I'm happy to share that with you. And then also you should get into a routine. And part of the reason you need to be getting into your Google My Business profile on a regular basis is because people can leave you reviews. And Google rewards companies that respond to reviews. Obviously, we don't know exactly what their algorithm is. But with companies, when they are active on Google My Business, Google rewards that. And so you should be in the habit of checking to see if you get any new Google My Business reviews, and then respond to those. And make sure your response is different for each one. Given that for most of the companies on here today, you have a good idea of who your customers are. It's not, you know, you have a relationship to a certain degree because you're helping them with products, with services, and so you can say, you know, you can reply, you know, thanks for the kind words, you know, Cindy, you know, we really enjoyed working on your backyard, or whatever it is. And not only does Google like it, but also people who are checking you out online and vetting you, even if they got a referral from somebody else, they'll check out the company. What that does is it gives them more reason to like and trust you. So another part of this is completing your directory listings with your online presence. associations, chambers, review sites, all of those have information about the company. And you need to make sure that that information is consistent. And if you've moved, that makes it even more important, because obviously, well, maybe not so obviously, but Google wants to connect the dots, and they say they want to deliver to the search, whoever's doing a search, the best results possible. And if you've got 2 or 3 different addresses because your company has moved over the years, if Google finds those different addresses and they're not all the same current one, Google doesn't think that you're as legitimate a business as you are. They think, well, maybe they, maybe they're out of business. Maybe they're, they're not, basically, they're not paying attention. Also, one above that, confirming the NAP, or name, address, and phone on your website, to make sure that it's formatted in this thing called schema. And that means basically, think about it this way: when you fill out a form online, say you're buying something, and it's like, who is this? And you start entering your first name. Often it populates your address, your city, your company even. That is in schema format. And that helps to, basically, it's saying that, that this is your name, this is your company, and that makes it easy for Google and the other search engines to make sure that you are who you're saying you are. And then finally, another aspect of strengthening your online presence is to review your website. Oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, you write a page on your website and then you don't go back and visit it. You might go back once, but then it could sit there for a couple of years and be out of date. It also, keywords could be missing. Maybe you have a new service or product that you haven't put on there, and you need to pay attention to that. But we'll get into more of that later as well. So next, number 2, again, this gets back to the thinking. I could tell you what to do and what tactics to use, but before we do that, really, the online presence is the most important, and that's why it came before auditing your current marketing. But next, audit your current marketing. What are you currently doing? List all of those things. Just even list them on a piece of paper or in a document. And then if you know how much something costs, is it an annual cost? Is it a monthly cost? What are any of the details about it? Do you know how effective that is? So the ROI, or the return on investment. Because chances are, most of you and myself included, it's hard to measure whether a marketing tactic or program is effective or not, especially when people are doing 2 or 3 things before they contact the company. Sometimes it's difficult to tell, but write down, make notes about what you know and what you think is happening. And from there, after you audit the marketing, typically what I find with my clients and people I talk to is that when they do this, they find that they're wasting money on certain things, and they didn't realize that they were spending still on a certain marketing program. And they'll save a nice chunk of money, and they'll start to basically tweak and hone it so that marketing is becoming more effective. So let's see, moving on here. Is it gonna go forward? Okay, so whoops, create and look at COVID-19 resources. So hopefully this will go back one. Oh dear, sorry, that's my fault. Okay, so first on this COVID-19 stuff, if you don't already have a COVID-19 page on your website, I think most likely you should. By now, consumers do know that things are changed. In California, businesses shut down, and as I recall, things didn't shut down for you guys, but when homeowners got back into shopping, they needed to know how to basically how to act and what they should expect. And having COVID-19 resources on your website is a great way to be communicating. You can share links, maybe share resources, emails, things like that. And start with addressing homeowners' concerns. Obviously, if you're going into a home, a residential home, then there are definitely things that people are more worried about than they were before. And then this is really important, is to revisit them and update these resources on a regular basis. Now, there are, most of you probably know this, but there are some resources that you have on your website. I was going to put a link to the page, but it's basically, if you go to the button here on the Austin NARI website, it will take you to a place that has a lot more information. It's a link that wasn't even worth putting it onto this page. Also, NARI National has some resources too. And here, if you look down here on the NARI National website, right on the left is COVID-19 response. So what's happened in this pandemic is that homeowners have new concerns. And I would recommend that you think about things from their perspective. These are just some of the areas that you could think about. Safety, timelines, finances, general uncertainty. If you put yourself in their shoes, that will help inform how you should be communicating, whether it's in your meetings or with resources on your site. I'm going to step things up a little bit. I'm noticing, Kayvon, I don't know how much time I have left. I didn't see what time I actually started speaking, but we're more than halfway through. So anyway, if you want to let me know anything, go ahead and put it in the chat. So here's some ideas on communicating and setting expectations. Obviously, with these other variables that we've got, where it's not just the labor, but we've got increased costs of lumber, we've got availability of materials, what happens with PPE, how are you managing those, what you have to do for COVID. There's a lot more that you have to do to keep homeowners happy, I think. And so here are just some ideas about communicating. Okay, next, competitive research. You can look at what your competitors are doing. See who do you normally go up against for projects, or see what they're doing, what your competitors are doing, and how that affects you. Here are some things that you can look at their website, content. GMB is Google My Business, Instagram, Facebook. Look at what their COVID-19 response is and more. And also, don't just look at your local competitors. You probably know, because you're involved with NARI, that there are people who are doing things, or companies that are doing things outside your market that are worth emulating. And check out what they're doing too, and you might get some ideas. Okay, nurturing relationships. I've touched on this already, but this is one where those relationships, especially now that we're not in person with people, you need to sometimes do things like reach out more often, or just be in contact more. Sometimes, depending upon what is happening, this was one of the early ones. Ask how you can be of service. Ask what concerns people have, and if there's anything that you can do about it. That might just be the difference that they need to hear from you in order to make that decision to continue working with you, or refer business to you, or depending upon where in the sales cycle they are, actually start working with you. And the idea in the nurturing relationships, this increases trust and it minimizes risk. In advance of talking to a chapter, the San Francisco Bay Area NARI, SFBA NARI chapter, I spoke with a woman who has a really high-end general contracting company. And she said that one of the things that they've had to do with these really high-end, like $7 million homes, is it's important to get the homeowner on the same page. And that way, then fingers are not being pointed at one another. And it's like, okay, let's move forward together. How are we going to deal with, the fact that something is not going to arrive until 3 weeks after it was supposed to arrive, something like that. So, okay, number 6 is, and I'm waiting for it too, Get more reviews and testimonials. This is so important. There are, I can't tell you how many remodelers websites or Google My Business pages I look at, and they might have, 0, 1, 2 reviews. And then, typically in a market, there might be one that has 15 or a couple that have 15 and maybe one that has 75 or 100. And that really does make a difference. If you have under 5 or under 10, make it a point to go and ask your past clients to leave a review for you. Google My Business, by the way, is the #1. That's the most important. So first, what I want you to do, though, is to audit what you've got. And here is a list of different places where people can leave reviews for you online. And by the way, as you know, I mean, we all learned this when Yelp came out. It's like, people would say, oh, I don't want to use Yelp. Well, it doesn't matter if you don't want to use it. People are probably leaving reviews for you or against you on Yelp. And the same goes for all of these. You don't own your listing on these. These companies can take them down at any time, and you also don't control those negative reviews too. So you need to know what's out there. Look at how many you have, what the averages are, average star ratings, and what those details are. Not only, from what people are saying, I'm going to trip over my words here, but obviously it helps you figure out what makes you different. But also remember, this is what prospective clients are looking at when they are doing their due diligence about you. You should identify where you need to be more competitive. And again, Google My Business is #1. You should set up a program or a routine for soliciting more reviews. And this might be just putting it into making the expectation, like, by the way, at the end of our project, or, when we wrap things up, I'd love it if you'd leave me a review, and then make it easy for them. Send them an email that has a link or several links that they could choose. And there are tools that you can use to do this. And there are companies that will happily set these up for you. Respond to reviews on Google as well as other places. And then there are different types of reviews. There's third-party sites like like these listed above. You have ratings, which are typically 1 to 5. There are testimonials, which would be something that somebody gives to you, you put on your website. And then there are also video testimonials, which are very effective when somebody goes to your website and they hear directly from the mouth of a client what it was like working with you or buying your product. Okay, #7. What we have here is creating a photo plan. This is one that I considered taking off, but if you don't have a plan for what you're photographing, it makes it very difficult to post to social media. And so you should look at what you've currently got. How have you used them, and then what do you need to do more? What do you need more of? And plan for these in your upcoming projects. And of course, we don't know what's going to happen. A lot of people are, okay, I see, Kayvon, thank you. A lot of people, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, anyway, it's easy. I know what the point I was going to make is. It's easier to photograph projects when you have a lot of them. And if you're busy right now, consider that. Okay, moving on here. Write a case study. This is a really cool, valuable asset that builds trust because you can demonstrate how you solved a problem. There's some different things that you can do. Measure your marketing, KPIs, key performance indices. Key thing is you need to know what's working and measure it so that you can make changes to it. And a tip here is to tie what you're measuring to your goals, to your company goals. So I wish I had a little bit more time, but that's my fault. Sorry, I went into more detail. So if you already have a strategy and you know what your messaging is, there are some things that you can do basically there's some things that you can do with those in place. If you don't have them in place, think about the strategy prior to that. So here we go. first is revisiting your strategy. You know, things have changed and we're in this crazy time, and reassess what are the concerns. Pretty much the biggest thing is, what are the concerns that your clients have? What new processes do you have? Things like that. And how that factors into your messaging and all of that. Now, reviewing your website, if you know what your messaging is, I would recommend making sure that your messaging attracts the clients that you want it to attract, and does it convert? You know, here you can read all of these. You know, how old is your site? Maybe add video testimonials, COVID-19 page. And here's one. I think it's really important, whether you have a marketing person or not in-house, you need to be able to make simple edits to your site. I don't want you to have to rely on a web designer to do that. Now, with that said, again, now number 3 is go through your site with your developer. Make sure everything's optimized. No broken links. There are alt tags on images, and HTTPS is the secure. You want it to be secure. It's less likely to get hacked, and that's a really important thing. Okay, number 4 is advertise online. I recommend having your strategy in place prior to advertising online, say pay-per-click or Facebook ads, Google ads. And the reason for that is that you know what your message should be, and you know what keywords to go after. This is an area that if you do it on your own, Google does make it easy, but it's really easy to be wasting a lot of money and not getting to where you want to go. I'd recommend working with a company, a pay-per-click company, to do that for you or with you, and then be pretty involved in the process. If things are slow for you, maybe you need to pivot. Most of the remodelers I've spoken with have decided to take on smaller projects as kind of trial projects. They may not put that on their website, but that's a kind of pivot. Others are expanding their geography a bit. And finally, with number 6, it is email and list building. I used to do a lot of training for Constant Contact, and it's still true today that email is the #1 ROI tactic for, you know, in marketing. And it's a great way. People do check their email pretty much every day, and a message lives in their email inbox, whether they open it or not. It's still there the next day. So just wanted to get you to think. You know, marketing, I'm hoping that you'll realize that marketing isn't that hard. And you should, though, I don't know if you've heard of this analogy, how do you eat an elephant? And I added the with a plan, 1 bite at a time. You don't have to do everything. I don't want you to leave here totally overwhelmed. I'm hoping that you have some ideas of things that you might tackle next. And I'd love to talk to you about any of it. No, you know, no obligation. We can hop on a call. So in conclusion, as I wrap up, here's some things that I'm hoping that you'll take away. You know, I want you to think about taking action with make decisions based on the available data. You know, these days data is it's not the easiest to come by, but I don't want you to be frozen. You do need to take some action. My hope is that you will invest and commit in your marketing, and that includes time and budget, and hopefully somebody on staff can take that on part-time. Develop your strategy if you haven't already, and use your messaging. All of the marketing that you develop should attract your ideal clients and projects. If needed, delegate someone internally. And like I mentioned before, stay nimble. We don't know what the rest of 2020 and into 2021 really is going to be. And I'd love to see you have more control over what's going on and how you guys are reacting to it. So just to recap our goals, my hope is that you're ready to accept why marketing is so critical right now and how to think critically about marketing for your company. I hope you're ready to know how to stand out from the competition and why it's so important. And finally, I really, really hope that you will take some action based on what you learned today. So I think then that we are ready for some Q&A. Let's see, yeah. So I'm going to move the thing back over. Kayvon, did you want to curate any of these for me, or should I take a look at them?
Sure. Sonia works for a countertop fabricator, and she's curious as why BB&B accreditation shouldn't be highlighted. And what if your certifications makes you the only one out of the 2 companies in Central Texas, highlighted? So she's asking
Okay.
me on that one.
Great. So, Sonia, I hope I didn't like deflate your, things too badly here, but Better Business Bureau is, yes, it differentiates a company somewhat, but a consumer probably doesn't look at one company with it and one company without it very differently. Sometimes the certifications, a client or a prospective customer doesn't even know that they exist or what they are. So while those are something that could be highlighted, they're not what a company, that's not what differentiates a company. Chances are, really, it's probably how you provide service. Even if you're selling the same products, it might be how you respond when there's a problem, or it might be that we, babysit everything all the way through the process, or things like that. So I hope, does that, and Sonia, if you want to unmute, I'd love to chat with you about this if you'd like.
That's fine. Thank you. Yes, I agree on the BBB. I guess when you went to your second slide about when you do have a certification, rather talk about what makes you unique. So maybe word, I guess, the certification that you do have, maybe worded in your homeowner or your potential client's wording to make them understand why you stand out. So yeah, but when you went to the second slide, I was like, okay, I kind of get it. Yeah, just put there a list of certifications that don't mean anything to the regular person. I get that.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one more question was, has anybody figured out since COVID, some of our showrooms are appointment only, and on the Google, is there a way that we can set that, or?
Yeah, apparently there is now, and I can look something up. I remember seeing something about that, the appointment only. I will look up a resource on that. I will tell you this, that there are people that all they do is live, and they live for Google My Business, and so I'm not able to keep up with quite everything, but I did see something come across in my feed about that. So I can share that with you. I'll do a little research and share that in the email that I'll send out. Does that sound good?
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks, Anya. That was me as well, because we didn't want to say that we closed, because then people would think we closed because of COVID, but we're open, but we don't want people just to walk in. So we did put notes in our profile and that kind of stuff, but to be able to do that. So I appreciate you looking into that.
Yeah, sure. And finally, if there are other questions, great. Are there any right now, Kayvon?
There is not. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, while we're waiting, if there are more questions, I would like to offer you guys a chance to take advantage of a total online presence audit. It's something that Duct Tape Marketing came up with, and I love it because what we do is we take a look at a company's entire online presence, and I actually farm some of this out because some of it is technical, and I don't do that single part of it. So there's an offer that I'm willing to give a pretty big discount to NARI chapter members, and if you're interested in that, let me know. I can share more about that. And what I do as my business is I am a marketing coach for remodeling contractors, and so I work with whoever is in charge or tasked with marketing inside a company, and help bring them along, educate them, and help them become accountable to get marketing done and move it forward. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, but feel free if you want to book a time with me. I'm happy to chat with you about your marketing and answer any questions that you've got. And Kayvon, now would be a great time to put the link to the survey into the chat, if you could. I have a survey that I've pulled together that will help give me some feedback as I do this with other chapters as well. We've got a question about what you guys are interested in hearing more about, with your chapter meetings. I will also include a link to that in the email that I'll send you with, the link to download the slides from tonight's presentation. And yeah, I think that's close to it. I'm hoping that I can get that Kayvon, or I can link in there, whoops, to you. And I am going to stop sharing my screen, I think. There we go.
So, Wells, I think you had a question about errors, spelling errors.
Yeah, is there another one?
Yes, one more question.
Oh, yeah. Wells, I don't know about you, but that bugs me. I actually was on a site today and I sent a note to them because they spelled annual with one N. I think that it reflects poorly on a company. Now, with that said, I understand also I have a brother-in-law who is literally a rocket science, but he's so handicapped when it comes to spelling. If you're like that and have trouble with some of these things, make sure you proof them, because it does reflect poorly on the company. So does that answer that, Wells?
Yeah, it does. I've seen like even on architect websites, I've seen like an architect. I might be fading in and out. Yes.
Okay.
I think we.
Let me see. You didn't have the survey monkey thing in there yet, do you?
So I'm having internet issues also.
That might be a sign.
Okay. I'm gonna, you know what? If I'm gonna do this, I'm looking up the survey link. I would love to put it in there because I don't know about you guys. Okay, gosh, it is slow tonight.
It is slow at 5
I've got like the page for me is only partially.
Texas, or here in Bertram, Texas, which is out in the country. So, but yeah, I think since we've had so many people call or dropping the calls anyway, let's go ahead and just, if you don't mind, emailing it out with your thing. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that you guys please take a look for that email and take a look at the resources that I've got. And if you're interested in joining my mailing list or setting up a time